Vice President, UTLA, and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Vladek, Superintendent Beutner, and board members. My name is Juan Ramírez, and I'm an elementary bilingual teacher and serving as the UTLA Vice President, representing close to 35,000 LAUSD educators. We are glad to be here for the first Labor Partners report under Board President Vladek to share with you an important study that confirms what civil rights and disability rights advocates have been saying for years, that California charter schools are enrolling far fewer students with disabilities than public schools, and that this is having a significant financial impact on our public schools, potentially threatening the educational programs our students depend on. Grace Regullano, UTLA's research director, will present the findings in more detail. I believe that you will agree with me that these findings should be very concerning for those of us who serve Los Angeles students every day.
Good afternoon, Superintendent and board members. As a former autism therapist, a former public student with a disability, and a future parent of public school students, thank you for paying attention to this issue, which is very close to my heart. For the 2016-17 school year, we analyzed enrollment and financial data, and the results were eye-opening. First, we found that charter schools, I don't know whether you can see this PowerPoint, but there is one. First, we found that charter schools in LA, San Diego, and Oakland, the three largest charter authorizers in the state, enroll on average fewer students with disabilities than district schools. In LAUSD, students with disabilities made up 11% of total enrollment in the average privately run charter school versus 14% in the average public school. We then applied a statistical test which revealed that the probability of this disparity being due to random chance was almost zero. Previous studies have looked at this high-level enrollment data and found similar results. Our research goes even further and examines if there was a difference in the types of students with disabilities between privately run charters and public schools. So we dug into the numbers to determine if students with disabilities considered moderate to severe were more likely to be in one school type or the other. For background, there are 13 disabilities identified by IDEA. 10 categories are considered moderate to severe, while the vast majority of students in the US are identified in one of the three mild to moderate categories. For example, students identified as having a traumatic brain injury, those who are on the autism spectrum, and those who are visually impaired are considered to have a disability that is moderate to severe in nature, while a speech or language impairment, a specific learning disability, or other health impairment are the three categories considered mild to moderate and generally less severe. We found privately run charter schools in all three districts were more likely to under-enroll students with disabilities in the moderate to severe categories and enroll a larger share of students with disabilities considered mild to moderate. In the average privately run charter school in LAUSD, nearly 85% of students with disabilities are identified in categories considered mild to moderate in severity. This is compared to 71% in an average LAUSD school in the district, a 14% difference. This disparity in severity was statistically significant and was consistent across all three authorizing districts. Finally, in the disparity analysis, we found there were 5 disabilities that were consistently under-enrolled, this is a sample of 3 of them, in the privately run charter schools authorized by LAUSD: autism, intellectual disability, orthopedic impairment, hard of hearing, and visually impaired. As you can see, the average district school enrolled nearly twice the percentage of students with autism, 4 times the percentage of those with an intellectual disability, and 5 times the percentage for those with an orthopedic impairment. On a note about transparency, it took us several months to even receive this data from LAUSD. This is data collected by the CELPA and reported to the state. The PRA unit told us over and over again that LAUSD does not categorize disabilities by severity. Then when the open data portal became live, lo and behold, there was a count of students with disabilities by severity type. This is just one example of the lack of accessible data regarding special education, which would likely prove insurmountable for the average parent of a special needs child. Unsurprisingly, these enrollment disparities come with a high cost to the public school districts that comply with their moral and legal obligation to serve all students. Using publicly available data, we calculated an average per student cost by disability severity. In LAUSD, it costs about $20,000 to educate a child with a mild to moderate disability versus $37,000 for a child with a moderate to severe disability. In LAUSD, the gross fiscal impact of these disparities range from $51 million to $75 million. The lower estimate only takes into account the top level disparities. If both the overall disparity and the disparity in the severity of disabilities were to be addressed, the fiscal impact jumps to $75 million, nearly enough to guarantee a full-time nurse on every single campus. For years, we have heard from parents, public, and charter educators that charter industry under-enroll students with disabilities. For the first time, we can now quantify these stories using data from 3 of the 3 largest authorizers in the states. Beyond the civil rights concerns, there are also stark fiscal impacts on our public schools. This report shows a disturbing pattern that, if left unchecked, means we are looking down the barrel of a public education system that will become increasingly segregated and destabilized. Thank you for your attention today.